Welcome back to the Bladtcast. And now, through the magic of editing, we're going to pretend I'm not using this shitty headset mic. I'm going to do my best to make it seem very seamlessly that I just finished talking with Adam Hughesy, the H Man Hughes, and then we're continuing now our conversation about Joker, folie deux. I'm happy to continue the conversation with my friend Liam McEneany. Liam, how are you today?
Oh, that Hughesy's a card, but he made some really good points.
He did, and he's very much interested in doing a live stream with you, where, as you know, the two of you discuss another stakeout, not the first stakeout, which I think is
Right.
actually a fun 80s movie, but another stakeout. And he has a message for you. He wants me to
What's that?
explain to you that live shows and merchandise are already in the works for the Liam and Husey discuss another stakeout. So don't be too quick to dismiss the Husey another stakeout possibility.
No, no, no. Here's the thing. Anytime you guys want to talk about another stakeout, I will happily sit down, watch it. It'll take me a couple days because I'll probably fall asleep halfway through. It's the one with Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, so that made it
Um,
better than the first one with just
is that
Emilio Estevez and Richard Dreyfuss. Yeah.
is that the one where she dresses up in dominatrix gear?
No, that is a movie with Dan
Oh,
Aykroyd.
yes,
And
based on an Anne Rice novel.
yes, and she's talked about it that they did the reshoots like months and months later, and she had put on a lot of weight. And admittedly, she had put on a lot of weight. Wait, this is her
Right,
saying.
but it's
And
mostly in her
so
head. She's got a
that's
big head.
yeah, that's true. You made me realize I needed that. But in any case, so that there's like she'll go into a building and interact with someone, she'll be much heavier than when she walks out of the building. So
Hey,
yeah, that movie's not Armed and Dangerous because that's the John Candy
John
and
Candy, Eugene
Eugene Levy.
Levin. Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't remember now what that. But what could go wrong if I type into Google Liam bondage movie Rosie O'Donnell? I mean, I can't imagine anything. Exit to Eden is the name of that
Exit
film.
to Eden. Hey,
Yeah.
listen, I got 30 minutes here, so we don't have to talk about Exit to Eden all day. Although, again, if we want to roll that into the another stakeout discussion,
I,
100%
I
into it.
think we might need to do a filmography of Rosie O'Donnell, where we culminate with the one where she played a developmentally challenged girl riding a bus to school. But well,
Unfortunately,
that'd be the last one.
that's called riding the bus. Riding the bus with my sister. Unfortunately, I do an impression of her in that movie, but I am currently, I can't say where I am, but I'll say the Hollywood Reporter rated it the number one film school in the world. That's all I can say.
Okay, all
That's where I
right.
am currently. So doing an impression of Rosie O'Donnell in riding the bus with my sister might get me in trouble.
All right. Well, you know what? We're teasing it all forward to the future. So we are neither here to celebrate Rosie O'Donnell nor to bury her. We are, in fact, here to talk about Joker 2, Folie à Deux. And you and I have chatted about it sort of lightly in the past,
Right.
but I wanted to give you this gigantic Blackcast stage to
Right.
share your thoughts about maybe if you want to start with what worked, you want to start with any aspect of it. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the film.
Right. I threatened to push our Megalopolis talk another hour with my thoughts about Joker
Yeah.
2. I will say, first of all, let's talk about what worked because there's a lot actually that did work, and a lot of it is the cinematography by Lawrence Sher, who is Todd Phillips' regular cinematographer. And you don't really think of like the Hangover movies as good looking movies, but if you watch them with the sound off, they're actually really pretty travelogues. And I'm a fan of the guys, and I saw this movie on the IMAX screen at the AMC Burbank 16,
Which is
which
also where I saw it, by the way, and where
yeah,
you and I saw the cinema classic Borderlands.
which is an ugly looking movie and it should
Correct.
burn in hell. Um,
Fair.
but I also there's some debate about whether that's a true IMAX screen, but
Oh,
uh, but
I'm
it's
really
big.
excited.
But also, Joker 2 was shot. I don't know if parts of it were shot with IMAX cameras or if the entire movie was shot with IMAX cameras. but it's actually designed and shot for the big screen like that. So it is everything about that movie visually works, and the thing is, there's no story, right? So it's like,
Correct.
uh, what fancy screenwriters and screenwriting instructors like to talk about is the character arc, and you start at A, and then it's up at B, and then it ends at C. And if you're doing the full hero's journey, it comes all the way around to like A minus, like almost back to A.
Sure.
This The Joker's character went from A to A and a half. There's just no, like, basically Joker 1 ends with him being this kind of like revolutionary figure where people are wearing Joker masks and he's in the streets and he's kind of inciting a huge riot, and people are like, let's get the 1% in the name of the Joker. And he's, like the whole point of that movie is like he's just this fucking like little man who just happened to find an outsized persona that people could grab onto. So the first 3 quarters of this movie obviously ignore all that, and just it's a prison movie, and the
Yeah.
Joker's stuck in like Arkham Asylum, and then all of a sudden, without ever having mentioned any of that, without like recapping any of that, even when like the Joker basically then spends the bottom of Act Two recapping the first movie, and just but he doesn't recap the riot in the street part. Then suddenly, and I know I'm spoiling this, but there's a
No, that's
huge
okay. Everyone knows this is all. We're going through all the spoilers, so no concerns
okay.
about that.
So basically, all of a sudden, there's a big explosion in the courtroom right when he's about to be sentenced to death, essentially, or life in prison or whatever. And all the riot in the street and all of the like, let's get the 1% stuff suddenly comes out of nowhere, like to the point where I was literally sitting in the theater, like, oh right, that was like the point of Joker.
Yeah.
That was like what all of Joker was leading to.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree in the sense that it feels like a backtrack, like you're
Uh,
talking about it going from A to A and a half, but then, if you take it in numbers where this one is starting with one, you actually take him back to like, I don't know, zero point 0.5 because he's back to before the end of the movie. This movie could very well have started and Arthur Fleck has become like a Jim Jones cult like figure of all these people in clown makeup, which, by the way, now that I'm saying it out loud, the idea popped in my head, I'd love that movie. I would
uh,
love to see a
dude,
cult leader Joker.
I mean, honestly, here's the thing. So, the other thing about they tell you in screenplay structure classes and books and all that is you have an A plot and you have a B plot. And the A plot is Arthur Fleck's plot. And the B plot in this movie is nothing. So you basically have a very long, boring story that you can't edit around and you can't cut away to a B story because there is none. So it's like you are stuck just in this Joker story all the way through. It is actually, if it had worked, it would be very like audaciously remarkable, but it didn't work. So it just kind of like the story just kind of like goes and goes and goes and goes until it ends.
Yeah, and boy does it end. And I think that a lot of times, like you can see a movie like you look. We talked about Megalopolis. In that movie, there aren't even necessarily whole scenes that work. There are interactions that are kind of interesting.
Right.
There are characters who are more interesting than others. There are things you can sort of like panning for gold. You could distill elements of that movie and like, oh, but look what's left in here. There's a couple of nuggets, some of them very small. And like Megalopolis, this movie does look good the entire time. I agree with you on that. But it's hard to sort of isolate the moments. Like what my expectation was heading into it. Well, the musical numbers are going to be fantasy. in his head. So they're all going to be like big Broadway stage or even like old Busby Berkeley musicals. And only one of them, and I talked about this in the earlier conversation, only one of them felt like that. That's the one where they're on the sound stage and it's sort of like a 70s variety show. The
Right.
rest of them, it's not that. And I was just like, I thought that we were going to keep going back to that stage or maybe something more elaborate. Obviously, if I'm talking Busby Berkeley, I was hoping for a swimming pool, and we don't get any of that. So even the musical numbers, you can't be like, oh, I like the songs, because I don't like the songs. I don't think that the songs are very well put together. I think Lady Gaga sounds like Lady Gaga. She sounds fine.
I
But
think actually it felt like in their duets, Lady Gaga had to hold back because
yeah,
he's
that's
not a singer,
no.
and so like you have this incredibly powerful performer who's like literally going at half power to not overwhelm her partner.
Yeah, just imagine if in Shanghai Surprise, Madonna and Sean Penn had sung together. Just imagine what she
Oh,
would have had
just
to do.
imagine. Well, what I think is really funny is I didn't realize this because obviously I like to read the trades and I like to follow things a little more closely than the average movie viewer.
Liam, I would call you a Hollywood insider.
I'm an outsider, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to I'm clawing my I always liken it to a pirate ship where it's like on the pirate ship is the treasure. In this case it's work. And everybody on the ship is fighting desperately to keep anyone new off of it.
That's
Um,
fair. Yes.
but what I didn't realize is that they don't advertise it as it's not a musical. We can talk about that in a second. But they don't advertise it as a musical.
Yeah.
So like kind of like the casual Joker fans, like the guys who are just like, oh, Joker 2's coming out. They had no idea. So like
Yeah.
those guys were just like, what the fuck am I watching?
Well, it's interesting because yes, they don't really market it as a musical. It's not as stark as remember, and you might have to think way back. There was a new Mean Girls movie that came out, which was a musical.
Yes.
But
Yes.
judging from the materials, they just remade Mean Girls with a younger cast, and also Tina Fey was still in it. You know.
Yes, that was a movie made for nobody.
Yeah, right, exactly. So this also feels like a movie that's not necessarily made for anybody because nobody's going to come out and be like, "Oh, I really like the musical numbers," you
Well,
know?
also it's not a musical, right?
Right,
Because
correct.
a musical, the form of a musical is it's a story where the music is integrated into the plot, and every musical number in some way pushes either the story or the character forward.
Yeah.
And there are actually like if you really look at Broadway show templates, there are specific kinds of songs that go at specific moments to really like help you understand the character's interior monologue. This is just a movie where uh, suddenly there's a song and dance number and Joker's tap dancing, and it has nothing with the does nothing to do with the plot, and you already know that he's a crazy person who because Joaquin Phoenix is an amazing actor, you already are like following his emotional journey, how he feels about Lady Gaga, how he feels about where he is, how he feels about the trial, like everything, and so when you um when you look at the musical numbers in context, they're just there,
Yeah.
and a lot of them drag. Except again for that variety show where they just kind of threw every kind of idea for a musical they had into it.
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing about that, and I believe that I mentioned this when I was speaking with Laura Grafton, who is a comic book scholar, and she
Mhm.
studies the character of Harley Quinn, that even in that sequence, he's still fantasizing about how she's trying to kill him. So as much as he loves her, he's like, yeah, but there's nothing ever good in my life. So I think that that's the one, if you can say anything comes out of that, it's the fact that like as much as I love her, I don't trust her. Which,
And
hey fellas, that's like being married. Am I right or am I right? Come on now.
and there's a very good point to be made, by the way, about like, and it's not in this movie, but there is a good point that could be made at that moment too, where it's like she's this autonomous person with her own like motives and needs and wants, but he's projecting a kind of more romantic figure on her.
Right.
And maybe in like a smarter movie, that might have been the point of that scene instead of just like her pulling out a gun or him pulling out a gun or like whatever the fuck was going on in that scene. Like the idea, like, okay, well, this is like, because in the first movie, look, I didn't hate the first movie. It was very cool to hate the first movie,
Yeah.
but obviously a lot of people didn't. I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't like fall over myself or like, but I got it. In the and in the first movie, that whole twist, where it turns out that he's fantasizing a relationship with this woman. There's a great thing about, like, here's a guy who's projecting what he wants this woman to be onto her, instead of like recognizing that she's an autonomous person with with just a life that she's living. And you could have retraced that, track back a little bit, and done that again with Harley Quinn, except this time also she has projected everything she wants onto Joker, right? And that could have been a very sophisticated bit of storytelling, but instead it's like you've got her pointing, you know, and a guy who's proven to be an unreliable narrator in the first movie is suddenly, other than these like musical numbers, the most reliable narrator. Because the scene where she comes and visits him in solitary, where he's
Yes.
not supposed to be seen by anybody, because he's just throwing him in the hole. Instead, she comes and has sex with him,
Yeah.
and Todd
Which,
Phillips
by the
confirmed.
way, I mean, sign me up for solitary. I mean, I didn't realize that that's what it entailed. Do I get to choose the pop star, or is it just going to be assigned to me?
But the thing is, I read an interview where Todd Phillips confirmed, yes, Arthur Fleck lost his virginity in that scene. So
Oh,
it's not a Fantasia, it's not a fake out. It's like a real scene. She probably, there's a cut scene somewhere where she bribed the guards or whatever to get in.
yeah.
But it's like, okay, so this isn't even like, we're inside the mind of the Joker and he's imagining certain things. No, this is just like an accurate telling of the story.
Yeah, and there's a lot of those feelings in there because obviously he's in solitary, and after what is implied had just happened to him when he came back from court, he's in there, and he is at times not a reliable narrator because I don't know, did this really happen? I think as the story goes along, you start to think like, okay, she says she's pregnant, which just his luck the first time.
he hit
Uh,
he hit a bullseye.
yeah, I know. It's one in a million, Doc. Good for you. But
Right.
and there's also a scene where she comes and sees him another time when you feel like no one should be able to get access to him, and that's, you get the feeling like, is this really happening? And then as the movie goes along, you're like, I guess so, but I don't know for sure.
So
Yeah,
so there's another version of this movie that could have been made that's centered on Lee Quinzel as kind of more the lead character.
right.
And in this case, in that movie, you could say I forgive all these like weird lapses in logic because she's the unreliable narrator this time. And she's the one that's kind of like fantasizing these things about him. And when she's faced with reality, she like goes nuts. Or in this case, withdraws and runs away. By the way, to the Joker stairs, where unless she saw the first movie,
Yeah.
she should have no idea what the significance of that is.
Well, she did see that TV movie that was made about him
Uh,
20 times. Just kidding, only 5 times. So
right.
we're led to, by the way, if there was ever something that needed to be a DVD extra, I know we don't live in the age of physical media, at
I
least
do.
a teaser. Well, I do too. And so does our mutual friend, Adam Hughes, and Phil, who we talked about make a lot. So there are those of us who
Right.
still live in the age. If they were to even tell me like, oh, we have a bonus feature, it's the teaser trailer or a commercial for the TV movie that's referenced, I wouldn't expect them to make the whole TV movie. Maybe just like, here's 5 minutes of the TV movie that we would have showed on the screens. I would love to see the TV movie, is my point, Liam. And you know what? The TV movie is probably better than Joker 2.
It probably is, and you're right. I didn't even think of that. There probably is a scene at the Joker stairs in the movie where he's dancing down the stairs, and
Yeah.
she went there to like grab that vibe, I guess. But the thing about, so I want to like talk about Joker 1 for a second.
Yes, please.
So, and this is another weird thing about Joker 2. So in Joker 1, I feel like Todd Phillips makes a mistake because he's very much aping Martin Scorsese's '70s filmography. And by the way, I don't think that's as terrible as other people do. It's weird that he picked the one guy who would hate that movie regardless of whether it was good or not.
That's
Um, um, but it's like Martin Scorsese, starting with Mean Streets, through Goodfellas and Casino. All his movies are about men who try to be important and are almost important, but at the end of the day are overwhelmed by the events around them and are proven to be very insignificant. And you see that, I forget the name of the lead character, Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro. I forget their names in Mean Streets, but you see that in Taxi Driver, Travis Bickle's big. I see that movie as like the third act being a dying man's fantasy, and that is like a reading that's very popular and it's a little bit controversial. But like, kind of like his fantasy is, I'm going to rescue this Jodie Foster child prostitute. I'm going to date this beautiful blonde woman. But even better, I'm going to turn her down when we see each other again. You see it in, of course, King of Comedy with Rupert Pupkin. You see it in After Hours, like, again, Goodfellas. Just like these guys who just are the main characters, but are not the driving forces in their own lives. So that's like a character arc that Todd Phillips aped in, or I should say recreated. I'm trying to work in this business at some point.
yeah.
This is a character arc that like Todd Phillips worked with in Joker, except I think his big mistake was Joker then became a very important figure at the end of the movie, like against his will, and like shit went off around him that he, like the outside of his head became as chaotic as the inside of his head, and he couldn't handle it.
By the way, the main characters in Mean Streets, Robert De Niro was Johnny Boy, Harvey Keitel was Charlie Kappa.
Right.
Yeah, so but I had to look it up because I don't know, they don't stick in your craw like Travis Bickle. Um,
Oh
it's
well.
it's interesting though, sort of the this idea of little men who think of themselves as bigger. Do you think that Scorsese could tackle a former announcer for the Tonight Show and turn that into a motion picture?
I got to tell you, man. I mean, John would make it impossible
Yeah,
because
that's true.
he's impossible, and to get anything together with him, even like a big movie that might glorify him or might not, would be just like
Yeah.
you have to wait 3 years for him to die and his family to
Uh,
to.
I
But
hope
here's it.
I hope 30 years. By the way, that's my own personal. But back to
But
your point. I'm
but back
sorry.
to my point. So then Joker 2, instead of starting with this like idea that like now he's a little man who has completely accidentally become like this important crazy cult figure. You've taken him all the way back to, like you said, square negative point five by making him just another broken bent inmate at Arkham Asylum, and trying to like recreate that character arc again. But you just can't, because like Harley Quinn just shows up in his life because he's famous and she wants to meet him. So like it feels like Todd Phillips at that point is trying to have it both ways. It's like, is Joker this like kind of like famous guy, or is he this like nobody that is insignificant and people are free to fuck with? Like you kind of like Todd Phillips. You can't have it both ways, buddy.
Yeah, I think that it is interesting, because even within, the early part of the film, even within prison, it's like all the guards like him. Everybody seems, he's got like a celebrity status. It's like, hey, Arthur, tell us a joke. There's sort of that acknowledgement that even in that setting, he's actually still larger than life. But then I guess the idea is reducing him to what they ultimately do. And again, we're talking about all the spoilers. What do you think about the ending of the film? I think that seems to be one of the more talked about controversial aspects of Joker 2.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, first of all, such a huge fan of Brendan Gleeson,
Yeah,
and God, anytime he's on screen, whether he's being nice or whether he's being like sadistic, I don't know if the guards actually raped him in that shower, but they definitely did some damage to him.
Yeah.
Um, like I feel like he was brought to the shower so that all the blood would just go down the drain. But in any case, right? That's another. This could have been yet another very interesting movie about the toxic effects of being famous,
Yeah.
right? Because like the whole point of that story, which was again not a B story, but just like a layer of the A story, is that the guards don't like Joker because he's weird and because he's kind of like was fun at first and now he's kind of withdrawn into himself. Brendan Gleeson, I'm sorry about the
Oh my!
helicopter.
It's the SWAT team is coming to well, we were talking about
I am spewing toxic levels of
well, we
bullshit
were
right now.
talking about Jim Jones earlier, and I think
Right.
that they're coming here to rescue the cult followers on Liam's Island somewhere in an undisclosed location. Uh,
But anyway, my point was just Brendan Gleeson's guard, on the other hand, like he sees in Joker's like he's nicest to Joker when Joker's at his most broken.
right.
Or I'm sorry, Arthur Fleck. He's nice. Arthur Fleck is mostly not Joker in this movie, by the way, which is
Correct.
very weird. But but he's very nice to Arthur Fleck when he's at his most broken and most down. The minute Arthur Fleck gets in front of a camera, starts to perform a little bit, gets famous again, makes a passing joke about the guards. That's when Brendan Gleeson's guard uh, becomes jealous and bitter and lashes out and decides he wants to bring Arthur Fleck back down to size.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
so the end of the movie, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
you asked
Well,
about
no,
the
no,
end
no.
of
But
the
I
movie.
think, I think that talking about Brendan Gleeson's character, which honestly it doesn't matter what his character's name is, he's the guard that Brendan
Yeah,
Gleeson plays.
Irish guard.
Obviously, that set of circumstances where Joker gets in that hallway, it only happens because the guards allow it to happen. They want that to happen. And
Right.
my buddy Husey asked me who was that who was coming to see him. I'm like, there was no one coming to see him. There was never a visitor for Arthur. He hoped it was Lee, but
Hmm.
the only thing that was going to be delivered to him was a bunch of shanks right in the gut.
You think so? I don't know about that. Like, I feel like I kind of like how excuse me. I kind of like how that was kind of left up in the air. It could have
Well,
been Lee.
it's my feeling that no one
Yeah.
is there, and that the guards made sure he had a sharp object, and they set it up for that to happen. Now, obviously,
Interesting.
it's not set on screen,
Right.
and if Todd Phillips were to ever say something otherwise, then I'd be like, all right, he's a filmmaker.
Right.
I guess mine now goes into extended universe. It's not canon, but I felt like as I was watching it unfold, I'm like, well, the guards were like, all right, we've had enough of this guy.
I mean, in any way you slice it, the fact that he's gone from having a six guard escort everywhere he goes to being left alone in the hallway is suspicious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and that you're right. I mean, whatever it is, whatever the ending was supposed to be, and I'm sure yours is correct because that is like the final, just the final logical conclusion of everything the guards have been doing up to that point. But what I would say is like I know that's with the first of all, I read about the ending online, like on Twitter,
Like
and
ahead of actually seeing it.
oh my god, someone from the test audience must have just leaked it, and it
Oh, okay.
went viral immediately. Um, and I thought that was a joke. I thought it was a joke. I really was like, "There's no way that they would end the movie that way." And I know that like I know for a fact Christopher Nolan after when they were making the first movie, that's how they wanted to end it. They wanted to end it with Arthur Fleck carving a smile into his face, and Christopher Nolan was still at Warner Brothers at that point, and he was like, "Hell no!" He was like, "Absolutely not over my dead body." Now Christopher Nolan's at I think Universal.
I believe so. Yes.
So this time Todd Phillips was also, I mean, if you read about it, the executives that greenlit this movie were fired. Mike DeLuca and fuck, I forget her name, but they came on board as the new executives in charge of production, and basically they were just handed this movie,
Right.
and it was just like, look, this we're making a sequel to a $1 billion movie, could be a franchise, just get out of the way. And so there's a big fuck you to Chris Nolan, and he's not a guy I would want to give a big fuck you to, by the way.
No, but I think that look, when the movie that you do after you leave Warner Brothers is Oppenheimer, all of a sudden there are probably people with bad feelings. What do you think about Todd Phillips getting out in front of this movie and saying, "Hey, hey, we hope everybody sees the movie and loves it. James Gunn had nothing to do with this. This isn't part of his vision. I'm doing something different. Don't let this be an indication in case it's terrible." And I'm not saying it's terrible, but if it is terrible, this shouldn't reflect on James Gunn's Superman movie that comes
Did
out
he
summer 2025.
did he do that? I know the studio did it.
Yeah, I believe that Todd Phillips didn't actually do it the way I said, but in a conversation, he was like, "Oh yeah, no." And by the way, I don't believe James Gunn had anything to do with this.
No, no, no.
Yeah,
This is being treated as an Elseworld
yeah,
story.
right, exactly.
So like the Batman, which boy, there's a lot of pressure on Matt Reeves now to deliver,
Yeah.
because nobody's really loving the Penguin.
Oh,
Um,
that's interesting. See, I haven't seen it yet. I've heard mixed things
yeah,
about it. There's, if you tell me that it's about the Penguin and it doesn't have like an AI Burgess Meredith, I'm probably not going to watch it ever. Uh, AI Danny DeVito, maybe, but Burgess Meredith, I would have seen them all already.
well, first of all, I'm rooting for great filmmaker and USC alum Matt Reeves to
Yeah.
deliver $1 billion blockbuster.
Do you
But,
think he could top
but,
the? Okay,
but,
go ahead. Finish your thought. Sorry.
but if it failed and DC decided to try to make Batman fun again, I wouldn't be mad either.
Yeah. Yeah, a fun Batman would be great. And I think that I don't hate Batman Forever, the first Joel Schumacher. The second one, it's a lot harder to try to
Batman and Robin, yeah.
Batman and Robin, yeah. But and you and I don't get to usually talk about Batman. I'm going to give you my hot take. That is,
Okay.
I don't have it just for the sake of a hot take. I think that the best Bruce Wayne on camera ever is Val Kilmer. He's the only one who feels like millionaire playboy. I would say that Christian Bale is one of my least favorites because he never felt like Bruce Wayne. I think he's great as Batman.
You know,
And yeah,
I would say the worst was Ben Affleck. Ben
as
Affleck
Bruce Wayne.
as Bruce Wayne, I was very disappointed. I thought that's what he would nail. I think
Yeah,
the thing is, we've seen some great actors who did Bruce Wayne for the story they were telling.
right.
So I feel like Christian Bale was kind of this like checked out millionaire playboy, and and like kind of like played a very smart guy playing an airhead very well. And
That's
I
fair.
think that worked for the story, especially in The Dark Knight, where it's like not only does nobody suspect the richest man in town is also the only vigilante superhero in town with $1 billion gear, but he politics his dilemma with the guy who finds out he's Batman extremely well.
That's
And
true.
you really believe that he pulls off the move he did with the board flawlessly because he's at his heart a shark.
Yeah.
I feel like who's your favorite?
Val Kilmer.
Val Kilmer was great. Look,
Yeah.
Val Kilmer was great. George Clooney I thought was serviceable. I think Michael Keaton was a great Bruce Wayne because he played him as a psychopath
Yeah.
who just happened to inherit a lot of money and didn't, was like the opposite number of Joker in terms of like directing his psychopathy towards towards good instead of evil.
Well,
Um,
Michael Keaton's the one who gave us "Let's Get Nuts," so obviously
dude,
that always is going to resonate in my heart.
it's so funny that like I remember Batman '89 when it came out because I was
Same here.
13. I mean, I was 3.
Yeah, I was 2 when it came out, but I went and saw it in the theater.
But the thing is, right? So like everyone's like, "Oh, Tim Burton made such a dark, edgy movie." It's because it was like the only thing we had to compare it to was the Adam
Adam West,
Adam West series, which by the
for-
way,
former
an-
mayor of Quahog, Rhode Island. Yes.
another great Bruce Wayne.
I
because he
agree.
was just like cartoonish. There's a scene that went viral on Twitter a couple weeks ago, like people were passing it around, where he was playing Batman and Bruce Wayne having a conversation with each other while the police were listening in, and he did it with two different characters. And look, is he a fucking Christian Bale level actor? Maybe not, but he delivered the perfect performance for what he
Yep.
like the Batman series.
For what that project was, he was absolutely perfect, and
Right.
he's still the Batman I think of first because that's the Batman. I'd come home from preschool, and
Yeah.
I would take a nap, and when I got up, there was a half hour of Batman and a half hour Get Smart, and that was the best hour of
Did
television
you
that I
did you take a
watched.
nap? Did you take a nap? Because that's what I requested.
Yeah, I got the nap, and then after the nap, I got to see.
But look behind you, man. Of course, Caesar Romero in my mind still the best Joker.
Still the best Joker.
And I know people say Mark Hamill or Heath Ledger, but
Look, they're all good. I mean, all the ones we're talking about. Heath Ledger, it's great for that performance. And I like Jack Nicholson. You have to put it in the context of this is over
yeah,
the top crazy 1989, but Jack's phenomenal anyway. So it's yeah. I'm and I you can make the case for Mark Hamill probably because he has more hours doing the Joker than anybody. If I had to guess, I'm just
I should
assuming.
I should walk that back. I don't know if Caesar Romero is the best Joker. He's my favorite.
100%. He's my favorite as well.
Heath Ledger
As you
was
can see in the picture,
yeah.
he's got a mustache underneath the clown makeup, and it's like in a future episode we're going to talk about Jason Reitman's Saturday Night movie, and one of my favorite things about the original cast of SNL is that Dan Aykroyd would play Jimmy Carter with a mustache, and
Right.
as a kid I thought Jimmy Carter had a mustache. He did not, but Dan
No.
Aykroyd did.
You know what's so funny is like I mean it was probably on Dennis Miller's show now that I think about it. But Norm gave an interview where he talked. Well, he was just complaining about all the latex that SNL cast members had to wear during his run.
Sure.
He's like, "Fucking Dan Aykroyd did Jimmy Carter with a mustache on. Nobody complained."
Yeah.
Uh,
Chevy Chase couldn't have looked less like Gerald Ford.
yeah, he was like 20.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is with like Cesar Romero was he didn't. I think he didn't know what Batman was. I don't think he had read the comic books or anything. He didn't know what Joker was. I think he just kind of like his agent said, "Look, they really want you for this role. We don't know why. Just take it."
Yeah. No, I mean it's a great gig for him. So as we tidy up the Arthur Fleck Joker story,
I have to go write a midterm paper pretty
yeah.
soon.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So we'll get
Yeah.
back to that and we'll finish up. And I'm not disappointed that Arthur Fleck's story ends here because I didn't enjoy. I'm like you. I thought that the first movie was good. I thought it made you think some interesting things. I do not think that this is good. There's not really that much interesting about it. It might be a great movie to have on mute. Where you occasionally look up from whatever you're reading just to see
Right.
pretty pictures. But yeah, this did not work for me, and I'm not recommending anyone see this. Not like Megalopolis, that I'm saying everyone needs to see on the big screen, but not because it's a great film.
What I think is crazy is that they were gonna try to do this as a Broadway show at first,
Oh my goodness.
and I mean, I honestly, I would love to have seen video of that show. I
Yeah.
can't imagine what that show would have been like at the end of the day.
Okay, but if you and I could have gotten $20 rush tickets for a Wednesday matinee, I absolutely would have gone to go see that.
Dude, if you said to me, I have $20, I have a $20 ticket to see Joaquin Phoenix reprise the Joker yet again, I would hop on a JetBlue flight and go with you. There's no question.
I'm
But I
a
wouldn't
little
pay for it.
I'm a little disappointed that I never saw Spider-Man Turn on the Dark. I felt like I should have, but I did. I had already. I like that's like basically the year I moved to LA, so it was like I never had the opportunity.
Can you imagine being in the preview audience? I know I'm about to talk a lot, but can you imagine being in the preview audience for Spider-Man Turn on the Dark with your kid, and suddenly an actor just falls off the rigging and hurts themselves or kills themselves?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not funny, but also it's kind of funny.
I believe there were no fatalities, but there were many injuries.
Many
And
injuries,
yeah,
but just like suddenly, One minute Spider-Man's swinging across the stage, and you're like, "Oh my God, Broadway magic!" Next minute, he's falling on his ass, and the curtains are closing, and the show's over.
Well, to be able to tie it all together and tidy it up, you know who fell on his ass? Todd Phillips. Liam McEneany, where can
Hey,
people find you?
you know what? That's one to close on. Thank you guys. Have a
Yeah,
great
but
day.
let everybody know where they can find you, and then
Uh,
I'll wrap it
oh,
up.
sure. I'm at heyitsliam.com. I'm on Instagram at Radio Liam. I'm on Twitter at Hey It's Liam. And also, I am. When is this dropping?
This week.
Before Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm doing a show in Los Angeles Thursday in honor of Norm's birthday, and it benefits cancer research, and it's also a party. And if you DM me via my socials, which I just gave you, or you could email me at liam@heyitsliam.com, or you can text me 424-245-LAFF. Uh, that's my Google Voice number.
That's
Um,
that's that's like 516-922 wine.
Dude, I'm telling you, I do a couple of. I'm also on Kevin Brennan's podcast regularly, and I do have a few Kevin Brennan fans who text me regularly,
I
and I
love it.
welcome it. I don't always
Yeah.
respond, but I welcome it. So, in any case, find me via any of those ways, and I'll send you the link to buy a ticket. And when you buy a ticket, you'll find out the venue. I have not found out the venue yet. There's a chance I may never find out the venue, in which case I won't personally be there, but there'll be a lot of great comics there. In any case, it'll be a great show and
And
a
Norm's
great cause.
birthday, yeah, Norm's birthday is always something to celebrate, and for a great cause, always worth doing. Well,
Oh,
thank you.
that's tomorrow, October 17th.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, thank you, Liam McEneany. We appreciate the conversation. And thank you to everybody who has sat through 2 episodes of Joker Folie du Talk, and tune into our next episode where we will talk about Jason Reitman's Saturday Night. That's all the time we have for now. But we'll see you next time on the Bladtcast.